Oregon sits on top of one of the most dangerous geological fault systems on the planet, and most people living there don't even know it exists. The Cascadia Subduction Zone hasn't ruptured in over 300 years. Scientists say it's overdue. When it does go, it won't just reshape the coastline. It will rewrite what the Pacific Northwest means to America. But that's not even the most mind-blowing secret. Because before we get to the fault that could kill tens of thousands, we need to understand why Oregon is already one of the most geologically, ecologically, and historically improbable states in the entire country. From the continent's deepest lake to forests that turn into deserts within 60 miles, to ancient lava flows that swallowed entire river systems. This is how 22 secrets changed everything we thought we knew about Oregon. Fact number 1 is going to prove this landscape isn't just beautiful, it's a time bomb. And the clock is ticking right now. Fact number 22. The Oregon Trail was a geographic trap. Nearly 400,000 pioneers traveled the Oregon Trail from 1843 to 1869. Not because the route was beautiful, but because it was the only path geography allowed. The trail threaded the only navigable Rocky Mountain gap for 1,000 miles in either direction. Oregon attracted settlers because the Willamette Valley, hidden behind the Cascades, was the only place west of the Rockies with enough flat, fertile, rain-fed land to sustain mass agriculture. The geography was the destination. The trail was just the brutal price of admission. 20,000 people died making that trip. The land itself killed them. Fact number 21. Oregon's borders were drawn by rivers, not politicians. Most state borders are arbitrary political compromises. Oregon's are different, drawn by geography first, politics second. The Columbia River defines the northern border. The Snake River carves the eastern border. These weren't choices. They were geographic facts that forced every treaty negotiation. Oregon is one of the few states where you can stand at a border and immediately understand why the line is exactly where it is. Fact number 20. The Willamette Valley. Why 70% of Oregonians live on 10% of the land. Oregon has 98,000 square miles. The Willamette Valley covers barely 11% of that. Yet 70% of all Oregonians live there. That's geography determining civilization. The valley sits perfectly between the Coast Range and the Cascades, catching Pacific moisture while being shielded from the worst coastal storms. The soil is some of the most fertile in North America, deposited by catastrophic ice age floods. The rest of the state is too mountainous, too dry, or too remote to support dense settlement. The Willamette Valley didn't attract civilization. It forced it. Fact number 19. The Chinook and the river that fed an empire. Before Lewis and Clark arrived in 1805, the Columbia River system was the most densely populated region in North America west of the Mississippi. Powered entirely by salmon, the Chinook built a trading network spanning thousands of miles. Dried salmon from Oregon's rivers was traded as far east as the Great Plains. The river was a highway, a currency, and an entire civilization's infrastructure. Then the dams came. By 1970, salmon runs had collapsed by 90%. Oregon's geography sustained a civilization for 10,000 years. American infrastructure dismantled it in 30. Fact number 18. Portland's geography, a city that shouldn't exist here. Portland sits at the confluence of the Columbia and Willamette rivers, which sounds ideal until you see what's above it. Mount Hood is 50 miles away. Mount St. Helens is 50 miles north. The city sits on a floodplain in a seismic zone, rated for magnitude 7 to 9 earthquakes. All 12 bridges connecting East and West Portland were assessed as likely to collapse in a major Cascadia earthquake. Portland isn't built in spite of its geography. It's built in deliberate ignorance of it. The rivers made it a commercial hub. The fault lines make it one of America's most geologically vulnerable cities. Fact number 17. Crater Lake, the deepest secret in North America. Crater Lake is 1,943 feet deep, the deepest lake in the United States, but it shouldn't exist. 7,700 years ago, Mount Mazama erupted in a cataclysm so violent, it collapsed the entire summit inward, creating a caldera 5 miles wide. Then it rained for hundreds of years. No rivers feed it. No rivers drain it. It's sustained entirely by snowfall and rain, one of the most pristine water sources in North America. Early explorers thought they were hallucinating. They weren't. They were looking at the grave of a mountain. Fact number 16, the temperate rainforest that shouldn't exist. Oregon's Coast Range rainforests receive up to 12 feet of rainfall annually. The Siuslaw region is one of the last temperate rainforests on Earth, a biome covering less than 0.1% of the planet. Sitka spruce grow to 300 feet. Fallen logs become nurseries for entire new forests. The ground itself feels alive. This ecosystem once stretched from California to Alaska. Oregon holds some of the last fragments. Fact number 15, the high desert that shouldn't be here. Drive 60 miles east from Eugene and everything changes. West, rainforest. East, desert. The Cascades act as a moisture wall, capturing Pacific storms and leaving the eastern side dry. Eastern Oregon has more in common with Nevada than with Portland. Same state, opposite worlds. Fact number 14, the Alvord Desert, Oregon's impossible badlands. The Alvord Desert receives just 6 to 7 inches of rain per year. It sits below Steens Mountain, rising 5,500 feet above it. The desert floods occasionally, then evaporates into a mirror flat salt surface. Hot springs nearby reach extreme temperatures. Geologically, this landscape doesn't belong to Oregon at all. It's part of the basin and range. Fact number 13, ancient lava flows that swallowed the landscape. 15 to 17 million years ago, massive fissures in the earth poured lava across the region for thousands of years. These eruptions covered 63,000 square miles to depths of up to 2 miles. Eastern Oregon is still that lava field, one of the largest volcanic events in Earth's history. Fact number 12, the Pacific Flyway, a continental crossroads. Around 1 billion birds migrate through the Pacific Flyway each year, and Oregon is its critical bottleneck. Wetlands and basins provide essential stopovers. Remove Oregon, and the migration collapses. Entire species depend on this narrow corridor. Fact number 11, the Missoula floods, catastrophe that created fertility. Between 15,000 and 13,000 years ago, massive floods swept through Oregon after an ice dam collapsed repeatedly. Water moved at 65 miles per hour, 400 feet deep, reshaping the land. The Willamette Valley's fertile soil came from this destruction. Fact number 10, the rain shadow effect. The Cascades divide Oregon into 2 climates, wet west, dry east. The difference can occur over just 40 miles. One mountain range creates 2 completely different worlds. Fact number 9, the Columbia River, Oregon's lifeline. The Columbia River powers agriculture, transportation, and energy, but it's shrinking. Snowpack has declined 20% since 1950. By 2050, summer flows could drop 30 to 40%. The system Oregon depends on is weakening. Fact number 8, the ocean that controls everything. Oregon's climate is controlled by Pacific Ocean currents. El Niño and La Niña cycles determine droughts, storms, and fisheries. The state doesn't control its climate, it responds to it. Fact number 7, Oregon's glaciers are disappearing. Mount Hood's glaciers have shrunk dramatically. They act as natural reservoirs, releasing water in summer. As they vanish, water shortages will intensify. Fact number 6, the 500-year flood that happens constantly now. Floods that were once rare are happening repeatedly. Climate patterns and development are turning natural cycles into frequent disasters. Fact number 5, the hidden aquifer crisis. Eastern Oregon relies on underground water reserves that are being depleted faster than they recharge. Water tables have dropped dramatically. The system is unsustainable. Fact number 4, tsunamis, the coast's silent threat. Oregon's coastline sits in a tsunami zone. A major Cascadia rupture would send waves inland within minutes. Many areas cannot evacuate in time. Fact number 3. Wildfires are escalating. Wildfires are increasing in scale and intensity. Entire towns have been destroyed. These events are becoming more frequent, not less. Fact number 2. The snowpack system is failing. Oregon depends on snowpack as its water storage system. That system is declining steadily. Without it, water availability becomes unstable. Fact number 1. The Cascadia Subduction Zone. Here is the fact that changes everything. Off the coast of Oregon, the Juan de Fuca plate is sliding beneath the North American plate. When it locks, pressure builds. When it releases, it produces earthquakes between magnitude 8.0 and 9.2. The last full rupture occurred on January 26, 1700. It triggered a tsunami that reached Japan. It dropped parts of Oregon's coastline and destroyed entire settlements. That was 325 years ago. The recurrence interval is 200 to 500 years. The fault is now at the far end of that range and believed to be fully locked. A full rupture would cause massive destruction, thousands of casualties, infrastructure collapse, and widespread displacement. Tsunamis would reach the coast within minutes. The infrastructure is not ready. And this is the deeper truth. Everything that makes Oregon what it is, its valleys, rivers, lakes, forests, and mountains, was created by the same forces still active today. Oregon is not finished. It is still being built. The fault is locked. The system is active. And the next chapter is already underway beneath the ocean right now. Every fact points to the same reality. Oregon is not stable. It is an active geological system that has shaped civilization and will reshape it again. The question is not whether a major event will happen. The question is whether the people living there will be ready. Right now, the answer is no.